So you sent over some fascinating stuff about Musk and Trump.
Mm-hmm.
This whole Pluto-Populism thing is everywhere right now.
Yeah.
And with them showing up together at that rally the other day, it feels like we need to take a closer look, you know?
Definitely, yeah. It's been interesting to see it play out.
What's the deal with this rally anyway?
Well, so it was in Butler, Pennsylvania. Trump held this rally there, but it wasn't just any rally.
Right.
It was actually at the spot where he was almost, where someone tried to assassinate him a while back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's a weird vibe, right?
Yeah, like celebrating, but also this, like, heavy feeling,
Totally.
like a near-death experience hanging over it all.
And who else was there besides, obviously, the star of the show?
Well, you had J.D. Vance there and Laura Trump.
Yeah.
Even an opera singer showed up, did an Ave Maria thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of over the top.
It's like they were setting the stage for, like, a dramatic entrance or something.
Yeah, maybe. But even before that, Trump himself, the way he was talking, it was interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, he had his prepared remarks, about the history of the place and all.
Yeah.
But then he'd go off on these tangents.
Like he does.
About potholes, like random stuff. Olympic boxing.
That stream of consciousness thing he does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people loved it. He talked for like 90 minutes like that.
It's amazing he can hold people's attention like that.
I know, right? It's like he's tapping into something more than just politics,
So, okay, that's the scene. Then what? This is where Musk comes in.
Yeah, right into this whole charged atmosphere.
Oh, man.
He's wearing a dark MAGA hat.
Subtle.
Right, like, come on, man.
He's never been one for subtlety.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And he endorses Trump, but like with this over-the-top enthusiasm.
He's like he's not used to being in front of that many people.
Maybe. Or maybe he was just feeding off the energy,
Okay, so we've got this rally, right? Celebration, anxiety, Trump doing his Trump thing, and then Musk shows up. That seems like a pretty good picture of Pluto-Populism in action.
Yeah, definitely.
But for those of us who need a refresher course, what exactly is Pluto-Populism?
So basically, it's when super rich people, like your Musks and your Trumps, start using populist language, saying they're anti-establishment.
But they are the establishment. Right?
Exactly. That's the whole point. It's like they want it both ways.
And it works.
Well, it's a good question.
Like reaping the rewards of being at the top, but then turning around and saying you're against the system.
It's so contradictory.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not just them. Think about Berlusconi in Italy or Boris Johnson in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, it's a global thing.
It's like they all have the same playbook or something.
It makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
For sure. So with Musk's endorsement at this rally, it seems like they're going all in on this Pluto-populist thing.
Definitely seems that way.
But can you give us some examples, like concrete things that they've said or done that make them Pluto-populists?
Yeah.
They're not just, regular politicians running a campaign.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is how they use resentment. Like, there's already this feeling among some voters that they've been ignored, looked down on, and Trump and Musk tap into that.
How so?
Well, think about what Trump was saying at the rally.
Yeah.
He kept saying he was a victim, right,
Right.
of the deep state, the fake news media.
Right, like they're all out to get him.
Exactly, and by extension, they're out to get his supporters, too.
That's scary.
It is, and it resonates with people who feel like they're being silenced.
Like their voices don't matter.
Exactly.
So it's this whole us versus them mentality.
Exactly. He's drawing a line in the sand.
And Musk, does he do something similar?
He does, but with a tech twist,
Because of his whole tech background.
Yeah, he's always going on about censorship,
Right.
bias in the media, how traditional institutions are the enemy.
And he's the hero, here to save us.
Exactly. The champion of free speech, fighting for the little guy.
But isn't it possible? I mean, maybe they actually believe this stuff, even though they're both incredibly wealthy.
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
Are they being cynical? Or have they convinced themselves?
It's hard to say.
It really is. And honestly, it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah, that's probably the most likely answer.
It's that gray area that makes it so effective.
Right, because if you look at how they actually behave, it doesn't always line up with what they're saying.
Exactly. It's all very strategic.
Yeah, I mean, Trump, right. He's Mr. Luxury, always lived the good life, but he's out there railing against elites.
It's almost like he's playing a character,
Kind of, and people buy it.
Well, yeah, because it taps into something real.
Yeah.
That feeling of being left behind, ignored by the people in charge.
Like your concerns don't matter.
Exactly. So when they see Trump, who's supposed to be one of them, right?
Right.
Taking on the establishment, it feels good.
Like he's getting revenge for them.
Exactly. Social revenge.
And Musk. Where does he fit into all of this? He's not exactly hiding his wealth either.
No, not at all. And let's be real, he's benefited hugely from the system as it is.
For sure, so what's his angle?
Well, remember what he said when he bought Twitter?
Yeah, about free speech, making it a neutral platform.
Right, which seems a little ironic now.
A little. It's like he's gone full Mézières or something.
Well, yeah, he's definitely picked a side.
You could say that again.
But that's part of the Pluto-Populist playbook, you know? This idea that they're the only ones who can save us, the only ones who really understand the common man, who can fight the corrupt establishment, give power back to the people.
Right, all that. But it's not like their policies reflect that, do they?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Because if you look at what they actually do, tax cuts for the wealthy, deregulation, all that.
It's not exactly helping the little guy.
No, it seems like it's more about helping themselves.
Exactly, and that's what's so frustrating. They tap into these powerful emotions, you know?
Yeah, like people are angry, they're scared.
Exactly, and they channel that anger, that fear, but it's all directed towards their own goals.
Which have nothing to do with actually helping anyone but themselves.
It's a power grab, plain and simple.
So why does it work? Why do people fall for it?
Well, think about it. We all want to belong.
Yeah.
To feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, that sense of community.
Exactly, and Pluto-Populists offer that.
Like a shortcut.
Right. They point at the people you're already angry at.
Breed an enemy.
Exactly.
Right.
And then they say, we're with you, we're fighting for you.
And people believe them.
It's a powerful message, especially when you feel like nobody else is listening.
It's like they're selling a sense of belonging. But the price is buying into their whole worldview.
Exactly, and that's where things get dangerous.
And once you're in that mindset, it's hard to see things any other way.
That's the danger, right.
It's like they've created their own reality.
And everyone in it has to play by their rules.
Exactly. And what happens when those rules start to, I don't know, undermine democracy itself? When speaking out is seen as an attack?
Well, that's when things get really scary.
It can't just be about blind loyalty, right?
No, that's not how a healthy society functions.
We need to be able to question things, challenge authority.
Absolutely, and that includes challenging the people who claim to be on our side.
Especially them, right? Because they're the ones who can do the most damage.
Exactly. We can't let our guard down just because someone's telling us what we want to hear.
We've seen this before, haven't we? Historically.
Oh, yeah, this isn't a new phenomenon.
Like, who comes to mind?
Well, Berlusconi in Italy is a prime example.
Right. He was in charge for a long time.
Years. And he used his power to silence his critics.
And to benefit himself and his cronies?
Exactly. The little guy didn't fare so well under his leadership.
It's amazing how often that happens. These self-proclaimed champions of the people turn out to be the ones who screw them over the most.
It's tragic, really.
Because it plays on people's genuine desire for change.
They see a system that's rigged against them, and they want someone to fight for them.
And then someone like Trump or Musk comes along, and they're really good at pushing those buttons.
They're masters of exploiting those grievances.
Yeah. And turning them into power for themselves.
It's the oldest trick in the book.
But it still works, doesn't it?
Unfortunately, it does.
This idea of social revenge you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
I think that really resonates with people.
Oh, for sure.
Like, haven't we all felt that at some point? That the system is unfair, that nobody's listening?
Absolutely. It's a natural human reaction to feel that way.
But it's dangerous to let those feelings control us.
It is. We can't let our anger blind us to the truth.
So what do we do? How do we fight back against this?
Well, I think awareness is key.
Okay.
We need to recognize the tactics being used.
Like the manipulation, the fear-mongering.
Exactly. And we need to be wary of anyone who claims to have all the answers.
Because nobody does, right? It's complicated.
Exactly. And anyone who tells you otherwise is probably trying to sell you something.
So critical thinking is more important than ever.
Absolutely. Don't believe everything you hear, even if it confirms your biases.
And be willing to stand up for what's right, even if it's unpopular.
Especially if it's unpopular.
Because if we don't, who will?
That's the question, isn't it?
Well, on that note, this has been a fascinating, if a little unsettling conversation.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise.
Anytime.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll leave you with this. Stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged.